Welcome to the Travel Like a Boss podcast, where we interview location-independent entrepreneurs that travel the world like a boss by being their own boss. Here's your host, Johnny FD.
Hey guys, it's Johnny and welcome to episode 187 of the Travel Like a Boss podcast. I am here with Steve Ruggiero.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here, Johnny.
So that's actually our third take. Said his name wrong twice. But
you had it right even before
Yeah.
As soon as the mics start rolling, that's when everything goes out the window. All the preparation goes out the window.
Well, if there was any actual preparation. I like to leave these podcasts live, authentic, and real.
That's right.
And speaking of which, today's topic is going to be very authentic and real. We're going to really try to keep it as a fun celebration of life episode and reminder of, what this life is really all about, and there's also this lifestyle. But also, we're going to bring up a pretty serious topic later in this episode as well. But let's actually start with a little bit of your background. Like, where are you from? What are you doing out here in Chiang Mai?
Yeah, so I'm from Chicago, born and raised in Warrenville, Illinois, which is a suburb, and was in the Army for 10 years, believe it or not. Graduated from West Point 2002, served 2 tours in Iraq. And after my tour of duties, I left the Army and got a job with Walmart, about as big of a corporation as you could think of, and hated it. So I quit 6 months into training. I was in training to be a store manager. I quit 6 months in and became an actor in Chicago. So I was, Johnny's hearing all this stuff for the first time right now, and he's like, whoa, what?
Yeah, well, I feel like I know you pretty well because we've been through a lot of pretty deep events here in Chiang Mai recently.
Yeah.
And I've always known you're a super cool guy.
Oh, thanks.
Well, so I first heard about you because I've been away from Chiang Mai for 11 months now, maybe 10 months, almost a year. And I entrusted the Nomad Coffee Club to a couple people who were still going to be in town. So for those who don't know, I started the coffee club maybe 3 years ago now here in Chiang Mai. And it was just an informal weekly gathering for digital nomads in town to meet each other and to learn from each other. It's free. It's all volunteer based. And it's really just to give away, a way to give back to the community, but also to connect the nomads here in Chiang Mai. And when I left, I was like, I hope this continues because it's such a good value to the people here. And I had saw that this, random bearded guy named Steve had, become one of the admins and was hosting the events. And I didn't actually meet you until, 2 weeks ago now.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I shook hands with you and we took a selfie at the Nomad Summit last year, but it's like, that's the day of a million selfies, for you. You got to meet and greet. And, but we never spoke. I don't think we ever spoke like more than a sentence to each other until, you just returned right now.
Wow. It's crazy. So this is interesting for me because I actually really like hearing your story. So you were playing Call of Duty.
Yeah. In real life.
In real life.
Right. More like, convoy commander, he was running convoys in Iraq. So,
because West Point's not a joke, right? That's like the hardcore.
That's the premier elite military training institution in our country, in the USA anyway.
And what branch of the military were you in?
Transportation Corps, all the way. Now it's been changed. There's now a logistics branch that encompasses a few different. So Transportation Corps doesn't exist anymore, but I was in the Transportation Corps, which meant I got to drive trucks up and down Iraq highways for 19 months total. 2 different tours, yeah.
Wow. So, and by tour, you mean like literally you're like in a war zone?
Yeah. I mean, well, when we first deployed there, the war hadn't started yet. And then the war launched shortly after I arrived. And at that time I was mostly based out of Kuwait. But then my second tour, which was 13 months long, was running convoys literally every day. Which at that time it had become, this was 2004 to 2005. It was literally the most dangerous job in Iraq. The insurgents decided they could start targeting transportation lines, trucks on the road that weren't, army tanks or infantry soldiers. So yeah, we were always on the lookout for IEDs, bombs on the side of the road, vehicle-borne IEDs, all kinds of stuff.
Wow, that's crazy. And I wonder, I can't even imagine how different your life is today than it was then, because I'm sure there's thousands or tens of thousands, 100,000s of ex-military people who, are kind of displaced now, where they don't really know what to do. They don't have, the same type of skills that, maybe a corporate office in the US would want or look for to hire. And a lot of them don't realize that there's this alternative of, becoming your own boss and working online.
That's a really beautiful point, because I remember being shocked when I came out of the Army and I was, talking to, other people that were in the corporate world, people that didn't necessarily understand the Army, and their attitude towards veterans, believe it or like, we all think like, oh, veterans is a great, resume builder. Like you've been in leadership roles, you've done all these things, West Point and all that stuff. But in a lot of places, it's actually looked down on. Like they think, oh, well, this guy was just in the military. He doesn't have any real world experience. It varies from place to place. But I was kind of shocked to realize that. But yeah. And then when I was an actor in Chicago, one of the ideas that we started working on was creating a nonprofit improv workshop to get veterans into comedy. And that sounds funny. There's a similar one out of Canada that did stand up, but I got involved in improv comedy in Chicago. And I was like, well, this was great for me. I think it'd be great for a lot of veterans, just to have some kind of, artistic expression and outlet. But then you bring up the great point of what about a viable career opportunity, right? Making money on your own online. And it took me a while to get there. I mean, this is, I've been out of the Army now for almost 10 years. So it took me a while to figure this lifestyle out.
And you know what? It's great that you're on here. So then people who were in your shoes can follow your footsteps and say, okay, well, if it worked for this dude, why can't it work for me? Yeah.
Actually, I hadn't even thought about like reaching out to veterans to share this idea with them. I really haven't even thought about that yet. That's a beautiful idea.
Yeah. And that's what I love about this podcast is it gives me an excuse to sit down with people who, otherwise, we would still hang out, but we don't have an excuse to dive in deep, dive in deep into our past, what brings us here today, and talk about, real business stuff. I mean, we've hung out, and I'm sure, we would continue to hang out, but we would probably just talk about normal things that are happening.
Or cryptocurrency.
Yeah, which everyone keeps bringing up, but like this podcast really gives an excuse to just ask those hard questions and dive in deep and think, just think a little bit more about what are we doing with our lives, what has worked, and how can we share what worked with others.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's great. I have my sister visiting me right now, and you met Lisa, and she brought 3 friends. I mean, that's an awesome opportunity. She's traveling with, there's 4 of them traveling, the first time all 4 of them are out of the country, and they come to Thailand because, Lisa's got her big brother here. So she shows up, and it happens to be that the first weekend they're here is the Nomad Summit, and they had never even, I tell Lisa a little bit about what I do, but it doesn't sink in, she doesn't really think about it. And, one of the guys Phil, he went to the Nomad Summit, and he said it's changed his life. Wow. Meeting all the people there has changed his life. And so it's Lisa, Phil and Sasha are another brother-sister pair. They're friends of Lisa's, and Cassandra. And Phil and Sasha are staying here. They're giving up their ticket to go back home.
That's crazy. So they came here on vacation with your sister.
Yes. And now my sister's going home with Cassandra only because the other 2 decided to stay here.
That's crazy, right?
Yeah, I think it's crazy. I mean, that's honestly my favorite part of the Nomad Summit is meeting people who come here on vacation or just to check out whether or not this is a viable thing, and then deciding yes and jumping both feet into it. Yeah. And Phil and Sasha aren't the only ones. I met at least one other guy who came here on vacation and decided to stay over this past weekend.
Yeah, we've actually surveyed every attendee that came to the Nomad Summit this year, and we asked, how many of you came just for the event, or how many people, was going to be here anyways, how many people were looking for excuse to come here. And maybe another one should be a follow-up. How many of you are still here that wasn't planning on staying here?
Yes. Oh, man. Yeah,
because I think you're right. Like the whole point of the Nomad Summit is to connect people, because you can watch all the talks for free on YouTube. We do that on purpose to be able to give back to the people who can't make it out here, right? Or the people that want to watch the videos again, to people that want to share their favorite talks with their friends. So we use, a lot of the money that we make from the Nomad Summit to reinvest into like a professional film crew, good audio mixing, editing, and we put it all up, for free as our way to give back. But also knowing that people are going to come anyways because that networking is priceless.
Yeah. That's the number one reason I like to go is you just meet people. I mean, all right. So just a little bit of background on when I moved over here. I moved over here 1 year ago, just over a year ago. And I came with the intention of discovering and building an online business. And before I moved out here, I bought a ticket to the Nomad Summit. And that was me throwing my spear over the wall saying, I will be in Chiang Mai by the time the Nomad Summit happens, And I didn't plan on just coming and check out the Nomad Summit and leave. I planned on staying and making it work, right? But when I arrived, I had no idea the amount of different kinds of business opportunities people are involved in. It's unreal. I mean, it's not just drop shipping and Amazon FBA. There's Kindle ebook publishing. There's guys working on app development. There's coders. There's there's a guy that I met that's doing databasing for artificial intelligence, And it's just amazing to think all the different things are going on here.
It was actually pretty crazy is I had forgotten that I had met you at the Nomad Summit last year. I didn't even know you were an attendee last year.
Yeah. I mean, well, I like I said, it's the day of a million selfies for you. You got, you're shaking hands and kissing babies all day.
Shaking babies' hands and
shaking babies and kissing hands.
Yeah. I like it. So, enough about the Nomad Summit. It's cool that you've stayed. It's been amazing. And I kind of want to hear a little bit more about how that happened. Did you get into Amazon FBA before or after that summit?
I had the idea of Amazon FBA before I got here, but at the time I thought it was called drop shipping on Amazon. I had the two terms completely confused. I had no idea. I was just watching all I knew was I was watching a bunch of YouTube videos and I saw that people were making a life for themselves out here. And so I reached out to one of the guys I was watching a lot of videos of, which is Riley Bennett, watching the Living That Life blog. And he actually responded. I found him on Facebook, messaged him, and his response was so encouraging and so welcoming that I decided to take a trip just to see. I took a 2-week trip, stayed in Bangkok for 1 week, and I stayed in Chiang Mai for 1 week. And that's when I decided for sure I was going to move. And then I had some time between the time I actually moved, right, and when I went back home. And even though I'd already decided FBA was going to be my first endeavor, I waited to learn anything about it. I had the option to look up videos. I had the option to do some research on my own, but I said, no, you know what? I don't want to learn anything. I want to learn from the people here. I thought it would be more efficient. And my learning style is more learn by doing. And if someone can show me what to do, I learn it much faster than if I'm reading something on my own.
I think that's actually a really good method because back in the day, like 4 or 5 years ago, the biggest problem was there wasn't enough information. So when it was so hard to find any information. I think the biggest problem now in 2018 is there's too much information.
That's a great point. I mean, if you were just to Google or even search on YouTube, Amazon FBA, right? Or drop shipping. Imagine how many courses were being pitched to you, how many different ideas are being pitched to you, right? You have no idea.
And some of that information might be good and valid. The problem is some of it isn't good, isn't valid. Sometimes it's taught by people who don't actually know what they're doing. But even the things that are good, sometimes you're mixing recipes, and that the fact that you made that mistake of calling it dropshipping on Amazon, you're not alone. There are so many people who get so confused with different methods and try to bake a cake using 8 different recipes, and they turn out with a bunch of sludge, and they say this doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah, having someone hold your hand through, or just to be there and guide you through the step. Because all right, so now that I've established myself on Amazon, I get people asking me all the time questions about Amazon, and I'm surprised about how much of the advanced stuff they know. Like they'll be asking me about how to run a PPC campaign, or they'll be asking me, how to source a product in China and all this stuff. And really I'm like, well, what's your, where are you at in the product research phase? And they haven't even found a product yet. It's like, well, focus on one thing first. They're jumping all ahead because they've got this overwhelming amount of information, but really to have someone show you, the order things go in is valuable.
Yeah. And I think that's why it's so valuable to take a course where you can just follow along and say, okay, today we're learning this. Don't move on to the next module until you learn this. And the problem with information on like Amazon is even though some of the information is really, really good, it's not applicable to you right now. And you might get so lost learning about advanced PPC marketing when you haven't even chosen your fucking product yet, that you're just going to get confused, or it's going to become overwhelming, and you might just never get started.
Yep. Yeah. Why you learn about step 14 when you haven't even done step 1 yet, right?
Yeah. 100%. So that's really cool. You came here, you met some people who had done it, and then what next?
All right. So then I got here January 1st, 2017 is when I arrived. And, I got linked up with a group of guys real quick. One of the guys that I met on my first trip was one of the Atlas brothers, Travis and Aaron Atlas. Well, they had a course called the Digital Nomad Campus, and 5 of us signed up. We each paid $300. And the whole idea was that they themselves were not digital nomads. They didn't know any of these businesses, but what they'd done is they had integrated themselves in the community real well, and they identified who were good leaders and instructors, and they brought them to us in a classroom setting and set up workshops and things like that for us. And it was amazing. Like the bond we formed with the other, so there's 5 of us in that initial class. It was supposed to be like the first class that went through. We still work together to this day. In fact, I got business partnerships with most of them right now.
What's crazy is I had never actually met anyone who was part of the, those, how many people paid for the course?
5 people paid $300 each. Yeah.
So I had never met any of those 5 people until, and I didn't know you were part of that 5. And I assumed from all the negative press about it that those 5 people would be so angry that they got, because basically what everybody talked about and everybody wrote about, even in that article in the New Yorker, is that those 5 people got scammed and they, got taken for. Yeah. But hearing from you now as a person who was, the customer, it doesn't even sound like you got scammed.
We all agreed that we got our money's worth, even though they left halfway through the course. They literally got run out of, town halfway through the course. We all felt we got more than our money's worth just by forming the bond that we had and the friendships that we had. And
it also sounds like, even though they themselves, weren't the experts or didn't know what they're talking about, it seemed like they were smart enough not to teach the class themselves, but to get experts in.
And they never pitched themselves as being the experts. They told us that they would be putting us in front of these experts. And one of the great things is these experts stepped up and helped us after they left. We reached out to actually the number one was Rob Fortney. He stepped up and literally took us and put us under his wing and said, I'm taking care of you guys. But even beyond that, we reached out to the instructors individually for like clarifications and follow up and this and that. And man, they were so eager to help. I just cannot get over how generous and giving this community is here.
Yeah. And it really is. And that's so crazy that to hear this, because I'm not saying that the Atlas brothers are good people. I'm not saying that I want to be friends with them or want to be associated with them, but it does show that when people start bringing out their pitchforks and they start, doing these witch hunts, cause, maybe they were kind of creepy, weird guys. Right. But it sounds like they were genuinely trying to add value and create something.
Oh yeah. I'm sure of that. Yeah.
And it's interesting to hear from the other side, because it's almost like there's so many people fighting on your behalf saying these guys were victims. These customers got scammed. We have to drive these people out of town and make sure no one else gets hurt. And it's insane hearing now from the victim, the supposed victim, that these, social justice warriors almost were fighting a battle that nobody even asked them to fight.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think they weren't run out of town because they were running a scam. Well, you know what? I don't know. I really don't know what it was behind everything. They pointed to allegations of rape in the past. I mean, this is like something on a blog 10 years old. I have no idea about the validity of any of that stuff. So there was just these really heavy accusations. But what happens is there's this pile-on mentality. Once someone says something or they determine that to be evil, they look at everything else and they say, oh, it's evil. So suddenly first of all, there were reputable, good people involved in this course. The ones that said, hey, Travis and Aaron, we will respect you and like you enough to provide value to your course. Right. So obviously that they had some kind of, respect in the community, You know, they'd been here for a while, and then all of a sudden,
you know what's funny is I don't think they were here for a while. I think they were pretty new, but they were just were like really charismatic.
Really?
Yeah.
I always assumed they'd been here for at least a few months before that.
I think they had just arrived, like not that much before that, and that they were kind of just, you know, because everybody in Chiang Mai is so giving anyways.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, you know, they were very assertive, maybe a little bit too aggressive, and you know, honestly, like. I met them and I didn't, you know, I had a funny feeling about them, so I didn't want to work with them, right? So I see why people don't like them, and I don't want anyone listening to this podcast thinking that this is in defense of them, because it's not, right? But I'm just so happy to hear from one of the supposed victims that you actually got a ton out of it.
Oh, we were totally fine. Yeah, we were totally fine. I mean, that was what they did have. They did have a knack for motivating and inspiring. Right. And they motivated and inspired us to, you know, and we formed this little team, and that team continued on. Like, it didn't, just because they got run out of town didn't mean we stopped working on our dreams. You know, we kept the dream alive. And really the biggest credit has to go to Rob Fortney for that. He literally stepped up the day that happened. Like, we're sitting in a classroom. They're supposed to show up. They didn't show up. Rob told us that he was going to make sure that we had some kind of guidance, gave us an opportunity to work with him. And wouldn't you know it, not even, I think it was less than a week, or not more than 2 weeks later, he had found a client for us to work on. So this company approached Rob wanting him to manage their FBA account. And Rob never takes on that kind of work, but he said, now I've got a team to do it, and I've got a reason to do it. So he accepted that client work and gave it to us. And literally that monthly sum paid for all of our expenses in Chiang Mai for the first, that was the second month we were there.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So for those who don't know, Rob Fortney, part of Amazon Gorillas.
Yeah.
And he's a great guy. You know, he's
amazing.
Like, just, and this is a big reason why I wanted to have Steve on the podcast this week, is to kind of hear the backstory on, you know, how he met Rob and how he created all this. And it's unfortunate, but a few weeks ago, Rob Fortney passed. You know, he got into a motorbike crash or accident here in Chiang Mai, and you know, it was bad enough where he didn't survive it. And we've had a couple, you know, ceremonies since then, cremation ceremony. And, you know, we had a ton of people like come out and just really support and share how Rob has changed their lives. And we had a tribute at the Nomad Summit itself. And then we had another meetup at one of his favorite temples. And, you know, we basically had a celebration of Life Day. Mm-hmm. And what was really inspiring and amazing was how many people Rob had touched, and how many people, you know, he had helped, and how many lives he had changed. And it was amazing. Like, and, you know, we're sad that Rob's no longer with us, but we're grateful for everything that he's provided, and for kind of striking something in our minds, thinking, okay, you know, how would we be remembered if we passed?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, you said about that celebration of life ceremony. There were people at that celebration of life that never met Rob in person, that he'd had an impact on them. I mean, his reach was worldwide, really. Probably his biggest market was the US, for sure. But he was training and teaching Amazon FBA worldwide. And here in Chiang Mai, where he had his roots, he didn't charge anything to anyone. In fact, he made a point. He's like, I won't charge anyone in Chiang Mai for my guidance and advice, because they're here doing it, living it. This is how I give back to the community. And it was, I mean, it was just I actually, someone was asking me questions earlier today on their podcast about mentorship. And Rob was like the perfect example of a mentor. Someone that doesn't, you know, it's not like he's trying to sell you a service or product. He really wanted to see you grow and see you prosper and see you live your dream.
Yeah. And what I really, really loved about it, and the way that Rob did things, was, you know, he didn't sacrifice himself so much where he couldn't, you know, afford to pay rent or eat, because I think, you know, on the two extreme sides, there's, you know, on one side, there's someone that just cares about money, and it's like, I don't care about the success of other people at all. I just want to make more money. And then on the other side, you have people the other extreme side. You have people that are like, I'm just going to give to everyone. I'm never going to charge a penny. I'm just going to give. And the problem with both extreme sides is that they're extreme. And what I really liked about, what Rob did was, he has products for sale. He makes money through affiliate offers where if somebody signs up for something that he talks about, recommends, he gets credit for it. But what I really liked what he did was he would just give value. And then if somebody wanted to go to his site and, buy something or sign up for something using his link so he can get the affiliate credit, they could. And in turn, he always had enough money where he can be generous with friends and people. Yeah. He always had enough money where he can pay rent and, go out to eat so he can, just live a normal life and be able to have the time and energy to be able to give back to, to the local community and people. Yeah.
One thing that people don't know about Rob's death, unless you're here in the Chiang Mai community, is that, on his last motorcycle ride, when he died in the accident, he was actually out in the hills of Chiang Mai, or the hills of Thailand, maybe about 50 miles away from Chiang Mai, giving money that he had raised on a charity project to the hill tribes. The children that lived up in the hill tribes, they live in poverty and they don't have the proper school and stuff. So he started, a year before that, he had started this Amazon FBA project where people can come in, donate money to buy a product. And then he guided them through the whole process so that they saw everything from the sourcing to the launch and all that stuff. And at the end, all the proceeds from that product were brought up to the hill tribes. And he rented a bike and went out there and gave it to them. And he never came back.
Yeah, that's intense, And if anything, maybe that was, the wrap up, right? Where they're like, okay, he needs to live long enough so he can deliver this money and to these people that need it. But it's also, like a big grand finale,
absolutely.
Just him dying from doing one of the most charitable things that you can do.
Well, what an example to all of us. I mean, here we are. Those of us that have benefited from his knowledge and his inspiration, we're here, we're left behind. And it's like, wow, what an example, I mean, I'm motivated now to give more of myself after that, and it's like, I'd known Rob for a year at that point and, work with him all the time and, vacation, we'd go on vacation. We became really close friends actually. And, now it's like I'm hearing his words of wisdom in a different light. Like they're more impactful, more meaningful now. He would always say them all along and it's like, okay, yeah. And I get it. I'm kind of inspired, but before it was like, wow, that's great. That's what Rob does. It's beautiful. But now it's like, holy crap, Rob's gone. Who's going to do that anymore? Like we have to step up and do that, fill that void.
Yeah. And I think there's two really big lessons to learn from this. One is we have to take care of ourselves and our own safety so we can continue to give back because we don't want it to stop. We don't want it to stop with us. And it's unfortunate that how many motorbike accidents happen in Chiang Mai literally every day. And it's something that we don't talk about in the nomad community because it's a downer, right? And our lifestyle is about, traveling and fun and adventures and making money, but it's also real life. Mm-hmm. And even though I feel like we should look for the upsides in things, we shouldn't wallow in things that we can't control or into negative events, we should learn from them, And one of the things that about riding a motorbike is when we're in Thailand, sometimes we feel so invincible that we do things that we wouldn't do back home. And one of that is riding motorcycles, through the mountains, usually without the proper gear, without the proper training. And I know I'm guilty of this, I don't have a driver license, but I've been riding motorcycles in Thailand for 10 years. And I've not just scooters, I've, rented 600cc bikes or bigger. And I'm flying, and luckily, I've been safe, but a lot of that's luck.
Yeah. And
right?
if the police pull you over, they give you like a $15 ticket for not having a license,
And, there's a lot of people who come on vacation just because they see other people doing it. And this happens a lot more, not in Chiang Mai. In Chiang Mai, people might just drive around the city, we're not going that fast. So it's not as big of a deal. But when you start getting on the highways and you start going big, on high speeds, you go through the mountains, or if you are going, a lower speed, but it's a, big stretch of empty road on one of the islands, and you're in flip-flops and a tank top and shorts and no helmet, even a 40 kilometer an hour drive, which is only like 25 miles an hour, can kill you.
Yeah.
And this happens a lot in places like Bali and places in like on some of the islands, because people just feel invincible. They see other people doing it. Everyone else is doing it. And there's no rules and regulations.
And, you come from the States like I do, and, there's a lot more rules and regulations when it comes to driving. And so people feel kind of free out here. It feels kind of, invincible is a great way to look at it. The statistics are horrible. Look them up. Thailand is a very deadly place for motorbike accidents.
Yeah. And I think it's a delicate balance where I think the reason why people don't talk about it is we don't want someone to rain on our parade. And to a certain point, I agree, where I don't want people to wallow in what could happen, because at the same time, there's plenty of people who ride scooters. It's a great way to get around. It's cheap. It's efficient. You can park anywhere. It gives us the freedom. So I'm not telling people not to ride a scooter. I think what we need to do is really just, protect ourselves as much as we can. And I understand, like, if you're going to go from, shop to shop and you're just like 5-minute short ride, it doesn't make sense to carry a full face helmet, motorcycle boots and gear when it's, 90 degrees out. We're not going to do it.
Right.
And, and even, if you say you're going to do it, you're going to do it for like a week and you're going to stop.
Right.
So part of it is really just, picking and choosing our battles. Like for me personally, I'll still ride a scooter around town. I try not to do it in flip-flops anymore. I always wear a helmet. Even if it's not a full face helmet, I just wear some kind of helmet. Yeah. And I just try to avoid long distances or highways. And, because it just adds that chance, that risk, I've actually been on that same mountain road at where Rob Fortney died.
Wow. Wow. That's way out there.
Yeah. I've ridden a motorcycle to Doi Intanon before.
Oh, wow.
And I can see how dangerous it is,
Yeah.
Especially in Thailand, there's not really any traffic laws. So it's very common for trucks to pass each other wherever they want, and
even on a curvy mountainside,
even on a curvy mountain road, and the other problem that people never talk about is, as foreigners, we don't really have any rights, where if somebody hits us, it is our fault.
Yes.
Regardless of what happens. And I think a lot of people they can't really rationalize that, because they're like, no, like that can't be true. But in Thailand, if there are almost kind of excuses, if you are not here,
right, the accident wouldn't have happened.
The accident wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, you're a foreigner. You're not supposed to be here. Yeah. But if you're, and like now, Thai people are very, very welcoming to foreigners. But that is true. There's that attitude for sure.
Yeah, and I know this because I got into a motorcycle accident, and not even an accident. I got hit from behind by a taxi driver when I was on Koh Lanta.
What?
And this was, a year and a half or 2 years ago now. So this was like 8 years into me never getting in an accident. I'm always very careful. I'm a good driver, and I'm on a single lane, like just a single lane road going straight. There's nothing, right? And any normal person would drive very slow on this road because it's just straight. There's nothing there. There's like lots of people walking across the street. There's like, lots of shops around. It's a beach, everyone's laid back. So you'll see all the foreigners driving like 15 kilometers an hour, nice and slow, just taking their time and easy, right? Almost kind of imagine, being by the beach wherever you guys live back home, take it easy. But to a lot of the Thai people living on the island, they just see this one road as their like super highway.
Right.
And they're just flying up and down as fast as they can, trying to get from one side to the other, for whatever reason, right? And I'm driving slow, like 10, 15 kilometers an hour. And because I'm looking for a restaurant. And all of a sudden, really like out of nowhere, I hear beep, beep. And normally that means, there wasn't like a bad beep, beep, like, warning beep. It was just like beep, beep. So I like slow down even a little bit more, and I turn my head to see a taxi crashing into me in the back. And what he was trying to do, and, was say like, I'm coming 50 miles an hour, get out of my freaking way.
Right.
And
that doesn't translate very well.
But yeah. And I'm like, either way, whatever miscommunication there was, if I'm not getting out of your way, it's not your job just to slam into somebody. So in any country, he would have been 100% at fault. You know, imagine you're driving, and it doesn't matter if you honk at someone or not, you crash into them going 50 miles an hour in a probably 15 mile an hour zone. It is your fault.
So, dude, how you get hurt?
So luckily, two things. One, so first let me explain the accident. He crashed into me. I flew off the front of my bike and I landed on my head.
Oh my God.
I broke the helmet.
What?
Yes. And it's, you know, it was a cheap helmet, but luckily I was wearing it because if I wasn't, it wouldn't have been the helmet that was broken. It would have been my head.
Right. Absolutely.
And the second part of it was, I was like, I thought, I was like, you know, this is not good, right? I like literally flew over the handlebars, hit my head on the concrete with, you know, with the helmet supporting. And luckily I had the helmet because that saved me. And I think the second part of it, to be honest, was the fact that I'm big and strong.
Right.
And, you know, I used to wrestle, I used to do jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai where my neck is like, is really strong.
Wow, man. Wow.
And I started thinking, I was like, man, if I was just a normal person, if I was a girl, if I was some skinny guy that, you know, didn't have this like bulldog neck, that probably would have snapped my neck.
Snapped your neck. Wow, man. Oh, that's awful.
Yeah. And the worst part of it, it was my fault.
Wow.
You know,
go figure.
The taxi, you know, he pulled over and he's like yelling at me, like, why are you driving so slow? And I'm like, why did you crash into me? You know,
no kidding.
And to make it worse, what happened is another, taxi driver came up and he's like, oh, let's just move to the side. So, like Mai bin Lai, which means like, oh, no problems here. And here's the other part of the Thai culture is people like to cover things up because they don't want to make things a big deal.
Right.
They see it being bad for the tourism market. They see it bad being for the businesses nearby. So they're just like, oh, just cover it up. It's fine. And honestly, things like that even happen with, bigger deal accidents.
Was your bike wrecked or?
Yeah,
wow.
and
jeez. So it puts a damper on the vacation.
Yeah. And for me, the worst part of it wasn't even the physical injury.
Yeah.
It was the fact that nobody took responsibility for it.
Right. Sure. Sure.
And nobody cared.
Yeah.
They're like, if you weren't on this island, if you, it wouldn't, it wouldn't have happened.
So remember that before you go riding out all over Thailand with your motorbike, your 125cc motorbike.
Yeah. But, so when we do ride, we have to, really ask ourselves, is this worth it or not?
Yeah.
We have to take the precautions while still living life and still enjoying it and, realizing, hey, it's always a risk, whether you're driving your car, your big SUV back home.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've seen people laid out in the streets here in Chiang Mai. I in fact, was involved in one motorbike accident. I was taking an Uber and, the Uber driver was pulling out of our neighborhood and, looking around for traffic, and this motorbike was going real fast, like passing cars. And my Uber driver pulled forward just a little bit, and the bike clipped the front of the Uber car, ripped the bumper off, and then of course the two guys it was a guy and a girl went spilling out into the pavement, and they like kind of got up and they were trying to leave before the Uber driver got out of the car. But there was the police showed up for about 30 seconds and then left. Like no one made a big I don't even know if that Uber driver got any kind of insurance or compensation for her bumper or whatever. But those guys, once they got their bike started, they just took off.
Wow. Yeah. It's a Wild West here. And it's nice that we have the freedom. It's nice not having to obey traffic rules.
Yeah.
It is fun. It's exciting. But at the same time, we have to realize, hey, this isn't a movie. This is our life. And if we were to compare it to a movie, have you seen The Beach with Leonardo DiCaprio?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
It's exactly like that.
Yeah.
Right?
Just like that.
It really is, but in the mountain town. And the part of it where I'm saying it's really like that is, it is this fun new society. Everyone, all of a sudden has all this freedom. It's exciting. We got to live this new crazy adventure life.
Oh, yeah.
But a big takeaway from that movie was when things started going bad, they swept it under the rug because they're like, listen, I don't want this to rain on my parade.
Wow. Yeah. That's a good point. I just like the first part of Beach before it gets really bad.
Yeah. Me as well. And you know what? Honestly, I wish that they would have just, stopped the movie right there.
Yeah.
But the fact is, you know what? the point of the movie was almost like, hey, things can seem all rosy and merry, but what happens when things go wrong? And that's what I think a big part of what happened here. What happens here all the time, probably.
Well, we come over here, starry-eyed looking for our dreams, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, but you got to realize that reality applies here too.
But the thing is, it's a balance, because I don't want anyone getting put off by it and saying, okay, well, it's all BS. There's no dream to catch, because there is. Like, every day of our life, we are happy here. Yeah. And Rob was the happiest he's ever been while living here. He was, man. He left a very stressful life behind. He was a nightclub owner and bar owner for years. And, in and out. If any of you are business owners, sometimes those businesses will do great for years and then they'll collapse. So Rob was at the end of the most recent, nightclub collapse. And instead of getting back in there, he was real. He felt, I know this from talking to him many, many times about it. He felt that his health was at risk. Like, he was so stressed out and so, I don't know, just wound up over all the different stresses. I mean, we think we're spinning plates over here when we're doing like 15 projects, Rob was, being a nightclub owner, you have so many different problems to deal with. Yeah. So I don't know if you know this. I actually had him on this podcast. I didn't know that, but I'm not surprised. Yeah. So if you guys want to listen to Rob's entire life story, he was really open about it and really inspiring. That's episode 137. Just look for Travel Like a Boss, episode 137. You can hear Rob's entire story. There you go. And I'm so happy that I had the time to sit down with him and learn about his story, because if it wasn't for that, I would have just known, hey, he's this happy-go-lucky guy that is FBA. But in reality, there's so much more. Yeah, sometimes when you come from like real stressful, real hard, backgrounds, you can appreciate the good that you have a lot more. Yeah, and I think he really appreciated it every day. Yeah. And not only did he appreciate it, he like showed others. He pointed out to others for them to appreciate as well. So always remember that. Yeah, I 100% agree. And the other thing that was really, really nice is he's left behind such a big digital footprint where there are still videos of him that he recorded that hasn't even been uploaded yet. So he can still provide value and still give content. Amazon Gorilla's YouTube. Go check it out. And he has all these podcast interviews. He even had his own podcast that he did with Nick Neiman that was sponsored by Empire Flippers called The Digital Journey. So he has 20 episodes there where he shared all his information on everything kind of he's learned. And what was really amazing about that is when we wanted to do the tribute of Rob at the Nomad Summit, it was easy to find a great clip of him speaking. Yeah. And it was amazing. So Nick Neiman, he edited the video, he played it for all of us, and it came out amazing. And I actually want to play it for you guys right now because I think there's so much to learn from it, and it's a great way to remember Rob and kind of learn from some of his lessons.
What they don't know is they're inspiring me as they do this, and I'm just so excited. I'm literally for that first 30 days, I met with you guys every day. I went and worked with them every day. We had this little co-working space we basically took over. We ended up watching sunset up on the top of Doisa Tep. So It was this incredible day. If you're out there and you're thinking, well, I don't have enough information about that subject, how could I be that? Just get busy learning. Yeah. You can stop right now and make a bold decision right now. Greatness comes from doing the small things over and over and over. Do something, get started, and then the magic will open up. I'm going to leave. I'm going to quit my job. And you will be shocked at what the universe provides you with that intention that you're actually going to do it. Be the worst at something because you're only going to get better. And by repetition, you get better and better and better. The failures that you have, you're learning so much you have no idea that will apply later on. Success usually comes to those who are too busy to be looking for it. Henry David Thoreau. Because you're going to fail. Like the tenacity in this thing is the deal. But what you got to learn right now is that you're ultimately going to win if you just keep showing up to the game. And that's what we're really going to do. Don't be afraid to give up the good to go for what's great. Strive not to be a success, but to be of value. I failed over and over and over again in my life. That is why I succeed. Michael Jordan. There are a billion people out there waiting to hear your message. Successful people do what unsuccessful people are not willing to do. There's a bunch of people out there listening right now who've got ideas. You've got ideas right now. I guarantee you're out there, you're sitting, wherever you might be listening, you've got an idea and you're thinking, oh, I don't know if I can do it. You have the self-doubt. But that's that point. Jump off and start on that thing. Be patient with yourself. Self-growth is tender. It's holy ground. There's no greater investment.
Yeah, just beautiful how he was always talking about inspiring things, inspiring others. There's one of the biggest takeaways I've got from Rob is that there's magic in just getting started, believing in yourself and just getting started. Because everyone has dreams. How many people actually follow up on those, pursue it? I had a great idea for a YouTube channel when I was working with Rob at the beginning, and I was doing this mastermind. I made the commitment to do my first video. 3 weeks in a row, I failed. 3 weeks in a row, I just didn't do it. And then Rob told me, he's like, you know what? Start your YouTube channel by doing one video. Don't even edit it. Just throw it up there and be the worst YouTuber on YouTube for one day, and you'll get better. And that's what I did. In my mind, I was like, I've got to, get the right shots. I've got to have the right music. I got to do the right things. And ultimately, I put up one video and got started.
Yeah. And getting that start is the snowball for everything. If I didn't get started with, my terrible videos on YouTube,
right.
Terrible. I mean, I'm looking back on them, and it's not just because they're in 360p, but the fact that I didn't even know about angles or lighting or anything. Yeah. It's, it would never be where they are today. And even with, literally with everything, I went to the Tony Robbins Date with Destiny conference, and I saw how well run it was. It was amazing. The amount of staff they had, the way it, was all put together. And I was depressed for a second, to be honest. I thought I was going to go there. I was going to get some ideas and implement it to the Nomad Summit.
Oh, right.
And when I was there, I was like, I can't do this. It's too much work. There's too many people. There's too much staff. It's too complicated. There's no way I can pull this off. And then I thought about it. I was like, you know what? Tony's been doing this for 30 years. Mm-hmm. And it's, after every single session, he sits down with his team and he, says, how can we improve? How can we improve? And he didn't add all those things once. He added one thing at a time, one improvement at a time. And 30 years later, it's the best seminar in the world.
Yeah.
And I asked myself, I said, okay, if I did this for the next 30 years, if I had the 30th annual Nomad Summit, and every year we made it a little bit better, can we get to this point? And all of a sudden I realized it's possible.
Yeah.
And it's not just with this event, but it's with our life. Everything we do in our life. If you can't do a pull-up, and it seems impossible to one day be able to do 30 pull-ups. It would be if you don't get started today. But if today you're like, you know what? Maybe I can't even do one pull-up, but maybe I can do an assisted pull-up. Maybe I can put my foot on a chair and just help myself up, or I can have someone help me, or I can use a band. I can use, counterweights, or I can just do whatever it takes to do that one pull-up. And I do that every day or every other day. And I just slowly work at it. If it's a business, I'm just going to get it started. I'm just going to plug it in a little bit. Every day I'm just going to write a little bit of my blog, or I'm just going to create a little piece of content, or I'm going to do a little bit of keyword research, a little bit of product research. And if we just don't stop, if we just continue, we'll get there one day. And I think that's kind of one of the biggest things that any of us who have already made it, or whoever who's ahead can leave behind to the next generation, people starting, is, that inspiration to say, hey, it's not going to be easy.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to do it overnight, but it's possible.
Yeah. Rob was always grateful for being here. He would say, if you wake up and you're not in a bad mood, just take a look around you. I mean, right now, Johnny, we're sitting in your apartment. I'm looking out, and it's a beautiful, gorgeous view. Sunny day in Thailand every single day. It's January, and it's, back home in Chicago, it's, below freezing. And probably snowing, we have a really good life here.
And we do. And even though now we're sitting, on the top floor of this really nice luxury building, and there's like floor to ceiling windows and it's gorgeous. There's a pool right below us. I didn't start this way.
Right.
I started at the cheapest apartment I could find. It was $150 a month, and even that was too expensive. So I asked if I can move into one of the bamboo huts that the staff lived in.
I love it, man. Man after my own heart. That's how I started, man. I started that way because, all right. So Rob had this thing about burn money. He said, when you come to Thailand, you come to Chiang Mai, and you guys start your business, you got burn money, which means that's how much do I bring for savings that I can live off of. And then you look at your expenses. It's like, all right, this amount of money will get me along here for 6 months or a year or, year and a half, whatever it is. And you got to do things to increase your burn time. And either that is live cheaper, right? Or start making money. Both of those things can work, right? You should be disciplined, live cheaper, and start making money, right? And then you start tacking on your burn time. Then you can stay here long. You can live the dream longer, But it's not going to all happen in one fell swoop, Add a week on here, a month on there, Before you know it, you'll be adding years on. Yeah, I mean, this whole city is full of people who've done it. They're not more special than you or me, It's just a little bit of matter of luck, but it's a matter of persistence more than anything. If you're persistent and you don't give up and you keep going at it, eventually you'll get lucky, right? Eventually your hard work's going to pay off. So I believe there is such a thing as luck, but luck favors those who are prepared.
100%. And that doesn't mean that we should rely just on luck or just on grit and hard work, because there's definitely things that we can do to speed up the process or make it easier. I mean, somebody, if they're persistent enough on YouTube, they can eventually have an audience and have 100 videos. But to make it a better process is, after you get started, maybe start doing some research, going to some meetups, take a course, read a book, learn from someone who can help you take it to the next level or upgrade, your search ranking, just learn more, just, continue to learn and grow. Because I think another downside that, is when people get kind of complacent and stuck, if I was still living in the $180 a month apartment, I'd be okay, but then I would feel stuck. I probably wouldn't be as happy.
Right. Yeah. Growth is important for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
But don't let that stop you from getting started. Somebody actually messaged me saying, hey, how do you buy your favorite brands of, stuff when you're in Thailand? Because, I'm afraid to move out there if I don't have access to blah, blah, blah. And I saw the message. I'm like, you're gonna let that stop you? Like, you're gonna let your fucking favorite brand of deodorant or your favorite, brand of clothes or even your favorite brand of peanut butter stop you from, moving to a beautiful, amazing place where you can surround yourself by like-minded, people who are all hustling and building businesses and doing all this, amazing stuff.
See, that's the thing, man. It's not just the beautiful weather and the location. It's really the people, the community here. When you're surrounded, literally everyone who's here on the digital nomad journey, they came here with a purpose. They came here to make something, and they believed in themselves enough to take the action. So it's a very special breed of people that make it over here.
Yeah, and 100% agree. And it's meeting people in person. It makes all the difference. Yeah. I mean, nowadays there's so many groups online you can join, Facebook groups, Reddit groups, online forums. It's different.
Oh, absolutely.
It's so different. Even within Chiang Mai, probably one of the most positive, helpful places in the world, there's literally a group called Stupid Questions Chiang Mai, because people would get just hated on so much for asking, questions about like, where should I live when I get here? How do I
do a visa run?
And questions that people actually need to know.
Yeah, these are important questions, by the way, but I guess some people got sick of hearing them again and again.
It's that, but it's also, I think, when you're talking to someone online, they're not a real person yet, right?
Right, yeah.
And it's very easy to think you're better than them or call them an idiot or just like not be nice, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, the internet's full of trolls.
Yeah, it really is. And it's a great way for people, the few unhappy people, because there are, not everybody's happy, right? Yeah. There's plenty of people in Chiang Mai who hate their life because they're stuck You know, maybe they have X amount of money coming in through a pension or through some job they hate. And they're like, well, the more these digital nomads come, the higher the prices are going to go because they're demanding, you know, higher quality services and nicer coffee shops and, you know, nicer restaurants and nicer condos. You know, fuck these guys. You know, let's keep them out of here.
Oh yeah, I've heard plenty of that.
Yeah,
I've heard plenty of that.
And you know, a lot of them are angry at people like me and you for spreading the word on how great Chiang Mai is.
Right.
You know, and the problem is if you just hang out online, you might think about all the negatives. That's, you know, maybe that's all you hear, all you see. But it's so weird because even when all that craziness was happening, you know, in person, people were actually very nice.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's true. Once the anonymity goes away and you see someone face to face, it can be a lot nicer for sure.
Yeah. And like in person, people are super helpful and super nice. And you know what? Honestly, I mean, even for me, like if somebody asks me a question online, I'm nice enough to answer it and I'll try to like link them to a resource or something. And I'll usually give them like 2 or 3 freebies, right? Yeah. You know, especially if they're taking action on it. And like if someone asks me something, I give them a link to something and they actually take the time to read it and do it. And then they come back to me in a few weeks and they ask me another question. I'm happy to help. But usually by the second or third question, you know, right, like one after another, I just ignore them. I tell them to Google it. But in person, I'm actually, you know, we take more time with them. We're like, oh, you know what? Let me show you. Let me, you know, come by this, you know, come by here. Let me, you know, open your computer. And I think it's that human element.
Absolutely. I mean, when you see someone in person, you can gauge their intention. Yeah. You can see their excitement. It's a lot easier to relate to someone as a person in person.
And I think it's also the fact that, you know, they've at least taken that first step of flying out here.
Absolutely, man.
You know?
Absolutely.
Versus just thinking about it and then finding excuses not to do it.
Yeah. No, you know, actually, I credit my haters as some of the success on my YouTube channel. I started a vlog on YouTube about living for cheap in Chiang Mai. It's basically how to get by on $300 a month at first. I've upgraded to $450 since then.
Okay. Thrifty Steve.
That's right. And you know, the people on there were hating me for all different kinds of reasons. Some people thought I was lying. They're like, no, you're just BSing to get attention, right? Some people were mad because I was giving people a reason to try it out, to come here and try it out. You know, with the mindset that what if they come here recklessly and fail? And I'm like, you know what? That's such a, I don't know. I just don't resonate with that mindset. Like, doesn't make sense to me. Inspiring someone to come try something out and maybe they'll fail. That sounds awesome. You know, like I'd love to try something and maybe I'll fail. Guess what? You stay here in Thailand for a while trying to get your business running and then you decide you're not going to make it work and you leave. You just had a period of your life where you spent in Thailand trying to make a business work. Like how freaking amazing is that?
Yeah. You know, what's actually crazy is that was actually one of those, kind of social justice warrior kind of hate things that they targeted me on. They're like, you know, Johnny, you know, you're talking about, you know, you're trying to convince people to start an online business and then come to Thailand. You know, how many people, you know, go home and, you know, lose all their savings, have to go back and just hate their lives after. And I was like, I don't think I've ever met any. Because what happens is either some people realize, hey, it's not for me, but I had a good time. Let me, you know, at least I know now this isn't what I want to do. I can just happily, you know, work my corporate job and say, okay, I prefer the security and stability of a paycheck. Mm-hmm. At least I got to travel for a year, you know, before I sign up for 40 years of corporate life. Or people make that business work, you know, and that is for them. Or they come out here and they're like, oh, you know what? Maybe I don't want to do drop shipping, but then FBA is for me, or content creation is for me, or programming is for me, or they find something else and then they start doing that. You know, I firmly believe that like pretty much 100% of people that I've met now in the last 5 years, you know, who have come out here, they've been happy that they've come out.
Absolutely. I mean, I can't imagine even if you don't accomplish what you set to, you know, come out. I mean, I can't imagine this being, you know, a negative experience. It at least opened your eyes, broaden your horizons, and heck, you're trying something. You know, I mean, you gotta keep trying and failing in order to succeed.
Yeah. What's crazy, I used to get a lot of hate when I was talking about living cheap too.
No kidding.
So that was,
dude, they're all over the place. When I realized that was a thing, I started posting my videos on purpose in all these these Facebook groups where there's people like to hate on the newbies and hate on the cheap people, right? And I got so many views and so much hate, and then people were commenting on my videos, and then people were coming to defend me and defend or just argue with them. And then one guy actually wrote a Medium blog online about me, pointing me out as a digital loser. And after that, my freaking my subscriber count started going skyrocket. I hit 1,000 subscribers in the first 68 days that I opened my YouTube channel because of the haters. So it was like, embrace them. They're actually helping me out in the long run. And I let them argue, and I don't delete their comments. Let them say what they're going to say. It's actually more of a reflection of what they are and who they are inside than it is of me.
I love that about you, man. And I respect that so much, and I wish that I had that mentality, when I got started, but I took everything personally.
It's not hard not to.
Yeah. And it wasn't until pretty recently, I think it was, in the last year or so that I was, I developed more of that mentality. I'm like, you know what? To be honest, at first I would do it from kind of a anger point of view. I'm like, okay, well, if they're going to talk, trash about me or, hate on me, I'm going to use that against them. And, it's going to drive up my subscriber count. I'm going to end up making more money from it. So that's my revenge. And it worked, right? Yep. But then, at Date with Destiny, I realized I was like, you know what? That's not good either, right? I don't want to do it from a anger point of view. So now I just kind of understand them, I show them some love. And I'm like, you know what? They're not, not that I'm going to let them control my life or change what I do. But what I started realizing, I was like, you know what? There's always going to be a couple people who hate the message, hate the delivery person or hate me for whatever reason. And it could be, most of the time, I guarantee they don't really know me. If they really knew me, they wouldn't, have those same issues, right?
Oh yeah.
And there's something happening in their life where they're not happy. They're insecure. They feel insignificant.
Or maybe they've been burned before.
Or they've been burned before, and that's causing it. And now, I realize the best thing I can do is, support the people who want and can benefit from it. Because that really is the silent majority. It's
That's
literally,
right. Yeah.
I mean,
if you think back to why you have your content out there to begin with. Yeah. Think about the people you're helping. If you let the haters win, then it's not just you that suffers. It's everyone that could benefit from you.
Yeah.
I
mean, out of the, tens of thousands of people who listen to this podcast every month, I'm sure 99% of you, are like, thanks for keep putting this on.
Yeah.
And then there's but most of you guys aren't commenting. You should let me know that you're there, or leave a review. Let me know, that you guys like the show and you guys enjoy it. But it's that one anonymous person out of the 40,000 that is so angry that they take the time to leave messages and comments and hate and say oh, fuck this guy. He's a piece of shit. 10 years ago, he was involved in this pickup thing and he was this douchebag. He used to have a mohawk and he used to and I'm like, you know what? I'm embarrassed about it. Right? I don't want to go through that again, but I've also learned so much from it that it makes me a better person today,
what hater comment got to me the most out of all the hater comments I got? One guy gets on and I even hate to mention it because maybe he's listening, but, one guy gets on there and comments because he thought I was a cheap bastard for not tipping the guy who brought me my laundry at home. Because there's this service called Wash Drop where people pick up, they'll pick up your laundry at home, they wash it and they bring it back to you, right? And, I was videoing myself doing that on the channel. And, what he didn't realize is that it was actually, to get the footage for it, I just picked up my roommate's laundry. You know what I mean? And I actually did tip my laundry guy when he comes, and and actually tipping culture is different here anyway. But it doesn't matter. But for some reason, it got under my skin. I think it's because I come from a service industry background, grew up working in my grandfather's restaurant, saw the waitresses struggle, and eventually owned my own bar and restaurant. And was, so I was always, and in Chicago, man, I tip so well. I always put good gratuity out there. In Chiang Mai, it's totally different. The tipping culture is just different, and I'm not going to be tipping 20%, on a street food or something like that, right? But for some reason, it got under my skin, and I found myself writing this long thing explaining like how he didn't understand because, you weren't there. We actually set this up, and I'm trying to make it lighthearted, but I realized how much I let him know that it got under my skin. I'll tell you what, that guy became like a recurrent troll that was just always there because I fed him. You see what I mean? If you give them love, then maybe they'll change or go away. But like, if you start fighting with them, then you get dragged down in that.
Yeah, definitely. And it's not good for anyone, So what I've learned from it, if you guys are going through the same thing, is the best thing to do is ignore it. The second best thing to do is to respond from a loving place, and either way, it's one of those things where like, if you're a good person, you're doing good things, who cares what those people think, like just focus on the majority. I mean, it'd be really tempting. Like there was, 400 people in the Nomad Summit this year, and probably 399 of them, at least according to the surveys, were like extremely happy they came. They're like, like, thanks so much. Your podcast, inspired me. The summit, I've learned so much. I met so many amazing people. The talks are amazing. My life's changed. And it'd be easy for, to ignore those 399 positive comments for the one person that was like, oh, the food sucked, or I didn't like this. Even though the food is amazing, by the way.
Right. It was great, man. Oh, the service is amazing too. That hotel does it right, man.
But like, it'd be easy to focus on that one kind of negative comment. But instead I'm like, what? Let me focus on the happy people, right?
There you go. Yeah.
And then, I also ask them like, how can I like come from more of a loving place even, because I'm sure there's a lot of people who didn't come to the summit for their reasons, right? Some people, were too cheap to go. And I'm like, instead of being angry at them, I could be like, okay, how can I market to them better and let them know what the value is for them coming?
Right.
Because it's annoying that some people, complain about the price, even though the people that come are like, it was amazing value. I would have happily paid 2 or 3 times more for it. And then, there's some people that are like, oh, fuck this Johnny guy. I don't like his personality, or I hate drop shipping or whatever. What I could do is I can be like, you know what?
It's
this summit's not about me.
It's funny how people can decide that without even knowing you. You know?
They're like, well, I read online that he was, he said this to this one person once, which is completely untrue, right? But they don't know that because they just take the other, some anonymous whiny person's like, point of view, or they just hear one side of it, right?
Yeah.
But instead, I'm like, okay, well, it's a disservice to them of not going to the summit because of this one thing, like, what can I do to, what can I do to get them to come so they can learn? I'm like, okay, well, maybe I can make the summit less about me and really highlight, the 7 other speakers or the, the other people that they would get so much, benefit from, or the 400 other attendees that they would come from.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, even if someone didn't like me, for whatever reason, there's 399 other people there to meet.
Oh, it's incredible. Like I said, it's like you can meet so many people doing so many different things, inspiring people. Just, it's just fascinating. I always come away with so many good contacts. And, the thing that's awesome is there's a lot of people here in town now for a little bit longer, right? They're coming to Chiang Mai, but they're going to stay a little bit, instead of flying in and out. And they're all eager to get involved in the meetups. So we've got the Nomad Coffee Club on Fridays, and there's a few other meetups in town that I love being able to direct people to where they can get value from, because I think that the more people contribute, the more value we get out of it, and the more this community grows. Yeah. And I think in the long run, I would love to see this community grow to give value to even at an even higher level. To the experts, the guys that sit here and work alone, and don't go out and the guys, there's a certain population here that are successful and doing awesome in the online, in their digital entrepreneurship, right? And they don't go to the Nomad Summit because they're like, well, what am I going to learn? I'm not going to learn anything from these guys. I don't care about networking, but they're missing so much that I don't know. I would love to crack the code and show them the value.
I already have some ideas for that. So part of the feedback that, we got from the 2018 Nomad Summit is that now it's grown so big that even though there are really successful people in the audience, it's hard for them to connect with each other because there's just so many people. So next year, we're actually really going to start segmenting people gonna do pre-summit meetup events where we're actually gonna just put people into the right categories, make sure they meet each other. We're gonna do things like speed networking. We're gonna do,
that's great.
Like we can do a lot of things. You know, we're even gonna like sit people together during lunch, you know, that we know in the same type of business. So all the FBA people on, you know, in one table, all the dropshippers on one table, all the content creators on one table. And there's so many things that we're going to do to make next year even better.
That's great, man. That's a brilliant idea.
It really is just all about connecting people and, you know, and having the conference be about the attendees. Mm-hmm. So I hope you guys can make it. It's going to be January 19th, I believe.
You already have a date?
Yeah. 2019. And, you know, the only reason, honestly, why I even thought this far ahead, I didn't want to do it, is there's so many people who are like, you know, they're like, Johnny, I want to come next year. I want to make sure that, you know, either I couldn't make it this year or I want to make it a goal to be able to be out here by next year.
Yeah.
So that's the only reason why we even set it up. Go to nomadsummit.com. You can get the info there for the email list.
Wow. That's awesome, man.
Yeah. So, man, glad you came on. Glad to hear your whole story.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
I learned a lot.
You haven't even heard the whole story yet.
Oh, all right. Well, if people want to find out more about you, where can they go?
You can look up my YouTube channel, Thrifty Steve. You can find me on Facebook, Thrifty Steve. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. So I actually always wondered why your name was Thrifty Steve, and now I know.
Yeah, it's you know who gave me that name?
Who?
Rob Fortney.
Really? Wow.
We were sitting at a table brainstorming ideas because I had this idea for showing my expenses. What I do is I keep track of all my expenses and put them on a Google spreadsheets document. Anyone can access it and like critique or see what I spend and get some ideas for themselves on how they can live thrifty. And Rob was like, "Oh, it's great. You can do a YouTube channel about that. We'll call you Thrifty Steve." And I was like, "Wow." I laughed and then I thought about it and I ended up choosing it. So
that's cool.
Thanks,
Rob. I like
it.
Thanks, Rob. So check out Thrifty Steve on YouTube. And if you haven't yet, please take a listen to episode 137 of Travel Like a Boss to hear the whole story of Rob Fortney, because he was such an inspiration. He's left behind so much value, and he's the reason why we're sitting here today. You know, and Steve's sitting here today across from me.
That's right.
All right, guys. Love you. And thanks for spreading the word. Thanks for leaving reviews and telling your friends about this podcast and sharing it everywhere to get it to more people, to help inspire more people to change their lives, to make the move, regardless if it's Chiang Mai or somewhere else in the world, but make it happen. Make that move. Thank you for listening to the Travel Like a Boss podcast. If you want to hear more, including the bonus, How to Choose the Perfect Niche episode, join our mailing list at travellikeabosspodcast.com. See you next week, and remember, if you want to travel like a boss, you need to be your own boss. So start your online business today and start living the lifestyle you've always dreamed of.